comes down to this one day, and then it's all what matters.
Wicked shots on towards them. They force them back onto the mountain. Alliance will finally take their first victory.
可以有机会让大家看到我们中国选手的实力。
He gets away. No, Sam comes around. Yellowstar hooks in. He's in trouble now. He will go down.
To be the best, you have to beat the best. So I have no fear at all.
Was in the one for nothing. Take down Samsung Blue.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Day 3 of the 2014 League of Legends World Championship, coming to you live from Singapore, where the teams in this group stage only have 2 days left to prove themselves to head on to those quarter-finals. The action is coming to you from the Singapore Expo, where you can see Najin White Shield heading into the venue. Moments ago, Fnatic in their ready room, focused faces as they get ready for a do-or-die battle, will be against OMG. Much more smiles in the OMG camp. Welcome, guys. I am Trevor Quickshot Henry, and helping me cover today's matches is a fairly impressive quartet of experts. Kicking things off with Mitch, Crepo Forceballs. Welcome back to the desk. Next up, Neil Prolly Hamad from Complexity. Next up, of course, Alberto Crumbs Renhifo from Team Dignitas. And, of course, rounding out the table, LCS caster and general raconteur David Freak Turley. Welcome back, guys. Before we get into today's games, we're halfway through the Singapore group stage, and it looks like we need to follow Crumbs' lead and rename Group C from the Group of Death to the Group of Life, because right now, quarterfinal hopes are still alive for every single squad. So with that in mind, I want to ask you to go back in time, look at our original predictions, our original assumptions of this group, and give us some more guidance, you know, from Philosopher Crumbs on the next 2 days of games.
I think that what we saw happen so far is that the teams are getting to know each other. They understand the strategies that are happening, and into every tournament happens a metagame, right? The tournament metagame is kind of developing, and people are understanding what's happening, like what champion is good, what benefits, and I think Crepo has a good point to touch on that.
Yeah, I kind of want to jump on that metagame point there as well. We talk a lot like outside of the desk already. Just coming into this tournament, we expected a lot of these picks like Maokai, Lulu top, but we've seen Aurelia in other regions, and that has stepped up. If we looked at the win rates, Crumbs pointed out yesterday, Lulu's absurdly low, and Aurelia is doing really well, really high win rate, a lot of picks. If we go to the support side, Thresh showed up again. He always like tampers off in the Western regions, but once like these Korean playmakers supports, or even somebody like Moore just plays him up to its limits, is such a good playmaking champion. And then in the top lane again, Rumble. Like he definitely showed up, new meta pick in this tournament, and people are slowly running out of bans. There's only so many bans you have for these 4 champions, and there's plenty more you have to do. Zed comes to mind as well.
Yeah, I agree. And sort of speaking of what's shown up at Worlds, really, I also kind of want to think back to when we ranked all the individual players coming into it in the preview show, because it's hard to kind of categorize an individual player until you see them play against each other. So kind of all we had was like perceived strength of region. We're like, well, the Korean's the best, unless you're someone like Name who's got name recognition. So specifically the Group C mid laners, I went and looked at a bunch of stats on them. Peke is actually having a really bad tournament, especially early on. We said he was number 3 in the group. He's playing like number 4. He's down 6 CS at 10 on average. He is the slowest average mid laner of level 6 of anyone in the tournament. He is the slowest person to reach level 6 in the mid lane, so his early game is atrocious. He's the second slowest level 11, only ahead of Naru of Dark Passage, so a really bad start to him. Xiao Weishao is actually the most lane dominant. He is the highest CS lead. He's +5 at 10 minutes of anyone in his group. He has the highest CS at 20 of anyone in his group, and he's laning really well. Something we knew about him from North America, but it's still working here. Cool from OMG is a big playmaker. He's actually the fastest level 6 of any player in the tournament. 6 minutes to level 6 there. He's also the fastest to level 11 of anyone. He's 32 seconds faster than Xiao Weishao, a minute 16 faster than Dade. He's making plays for his team. Dade, meanwhile, he's kind of well-rounded. Second highest CS at 10 lead, second highest time to 6 behind Cool, highest gold of any mid laner, so his team's doing really well. And so you have these guys doing different strengths for their teams.
Probably, is that what you expected?
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised. Like what Crumb said about the teams kind of learning each other and then playing off of that, I think that's really prevalent in the mid lane. Like looking at like Cool and Xiao Weishao, it started off kind of passive. In the first few games, there weren't many kills or anything like that. And then as the tournament's progressing, Xiao Weishao's killing people, Cool's killing people, and there's a lot more like blood in the mid lane, which is what I expected in the beginning. So I'm really glad that that's kind of coming to fruition, that the aggressive mid lanes are coming out now.
Well, I'm happy you talked about the mid lanes. It's a natural segue. It's not going to be a killing one, but as we move on, the one world's big play that we're going to highlight from yesterday from Twitter comes from a Samsung Blue versus LMQ matchup. And that CV Dragon tweets, Dade playing around with LMQ in the mid lane at like 10% HP. Balls of steel, and telling them who is their Dade. Roll out Yasuo.
They keep fighting. Oh, John, the Waters completely misses. This time around, Joe goes out. There's the ultimate.
Right here we have No Name trying to death.
It's chasing. He's going to catch on towards him. He gets away. Ackerman comes in. He's taken low. Breakable from more, just about stopping the damage. Death Sentence land pulls him in. Dade taking low, slides out the way. No Name's in trouble. He goes down.
Desperately trying to kill Dade, trying to make a name for himself, but ultimately.
Yeah. I think the Lantern from Hard actually was the one thing that just gave him the final shield before his flow kicked in and gave him another shield. And that's really hard to land recently in like a cluster of 5 people because it only shields Thresh and the person you're trying to shield. And if you misclick that a little bit, yeah, you just kill him.
Manages to survive.
Yep.
Right, you guys at home can share your favorite moments from those games with us throughout Worlds by tweeting them to us at LOL Esports with the hashtag Worlds Big Plays. Let's also take a moment to check out some of the escapes from yesterday as players narrowly avoided death in a segment that we call
Damn Jukes.
Thank you very much. Right, first one is Najin White Shield versus Alliance, and watch, he manages to get out with his life.
Well, it's only thematic. I mean, he's up against the Chrono Keeper. Why wouldn't Watch be perfectly suited here? What I really like, though, is that Watch knows he doesn't need this shield to survive, so he ward hops instead. It might have been cooldown based, but basically because he ward hops away, Nif can't land a second auto attack here, so pretty crucial that Watch gets away like that.
So close indeed. The next one comes from OMG versus Fnatic, and this is Sun getting away with his life.
Yeah, actually, the play is actually in the wrong direction here from Yellowstar, but I'll give it to that. What he could have done is throw the Lantern right here in between the turret and the wall, and that would have blocked Sand. Lantern has a small collision radius, and that way you can really screw with enemy ADs. And if you ever do that, that's called a crepo, by the way.
Yeah.
Called a crepo, calling dibs on
I want my
that
own
one.
play named after me, and I can never do it because I can't get to Worlds anymore.
Well, hopefully next year.
One time.
All right. If you guys check out today's schedule, you can see that we have got some ridiculously colossal battles ahead. It all begins with a rematch battle between Fnatic and OMG, and immediately after that, Alliance and Cloud9 will face off once again. Alliance really need a win in that matchup. That will be followed by LMQ versus Fnatic. The action keeps going into the last match of the day, where Alliance will once again do battle, this time against Najin White Shield. For stats on the teams and players, as well as spoiler-free VODs, features, photos, and much, much more, head over to lolesports.com. While you're there, you can play Armchair Analyst and visit the complete schedule to pick the teams that you think will be victorious in today's matchups. Now, we'd like to give us some information. Head to Twitter and tell us which player in your mind has been the biggest star in the Singapore group stage so far and why. I'm going to ask a couple of guys on the desk. Prolly, you're first. Who, let's be honest, which mid laner has stepped up in your mind?
Why would you say mid laner? Come on. I hope this curse doesn't transfer, but Zhao has really impressed me. During the regionals, he wasn't that strong on the assassins he picked, but now he's coming out, and I think he's making a really big name for himself. He's always even or ahead. I haven't seen him lose a lane really yet, and that's kind of something that's really strong with the team.
And Crumbs?
To me, it has to be Gorilla. All the games that Najin White Shield has won have been off the back of Gorilla's playmaking abilities. He's got multiple games on Thresh, and every hook, they hook, and the entire team is ready to follow up, and it just leads to their victories.
So I think they're going to get a silver on the back of Gorilla.
Right, so we've heard from some of our guys. We want to hear from you. Tweet your responses to us at LoL eSports with that hashtag words. We will pick our favorite responses and share them with you later in the show and get some of the input on what you guys have to say. Let's head into our first match of the day. It will, of course, be Fnatic taking on OMG in a rematch from yesterday that, truthfully, was very one-sided in OMG's favor. Both of these teams came into play, and Fnatic simply were outplayed in the mid-game. They were overconfident, they were over-aggressive, and they bit off more than they could chew.
Now, I'm not impressed with Soaz picking Lulu. I really liked him taking Aurelia, and he's just not having a good tournament on these champions that are full-on supporting. We know he's this guy that wants to be carrying. He wants to be making a name for himself, and Lulu's not the champion to do that. Just play Aurelia. She's been doing excellently in the tournament, and you'll see more success with it.
I think Soaz actually used to be a good Lulu player. He just needs to get into the right mindset in that particular game as well. Like, he was just overextended once ahead of his lane when he had vision on the bottom side of the map. When every lane was doing well, they could have snowballed the game. What his team needed from him that game wasn't a Lulu carry. They needed Lulu with utility, and they could have done that. But he tried to overextend and win his lane too hard, and he got punished for it. And the one weakness Soaz has, he has a really big champion pool. He's a really good player, but he's a very emotional player. And you could see it at the player camp. Every time they ganked him, every time they dove or roamed him, you could see his face just get a little more angry, a little more sad every time. So if teams are watching for that, he may expect to be camped even more.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the team on the other side of the rift. It is, of course, OMG. For both Fnatic and OMG, this is a battle where it's getting close to do or die. They're bottom of the table, 1 and 2. OMG, terrible day 1, better day 2. Sort of the opposite for Fnatic. They've also been up and down, Freak.
Yeah, here's the weird thing. So for Fnatic first, if they play the way they did against Samsung Blue, they would probably be able to just win Worlds if they played every single game that strongly, because it was such a good performance. But we keep seeing these incredibly hit-and-miss performances. The same thing, of course, for OMG as well. As you said, Trevor, their first day really lackluster. Their second day so good, and it still hinges on Cool to me. Again, right? He gets level 6 really fast, level 11 really fast. He's the playmaker there, and if he can keep going, they'll do well.
I definitely think Fnatic's game yesterday against OMG was almost a mistake. It really just seemed like Fnatic just, wasn't in their element. But I think this matchup is really heavily favored to Fnatic if they play the way they do against, like, Samsung Blue.
Well, I think we've heard a little bit of insight into both of these squads. I want to put you guys on the spot for the first game of the day and hear your predictions. Who do you think is going to win this do-or-die battle? Which team will show up? We were discussing it over breakfast or dinner, whatever it is now. And there's some split decisions in production. I want to know if there's split decisions here. Crepo, you are first on my list. Fnatic or OMG, who's picking up the win and why?
Even though they lost yesterday, I think I'm going with Fnatic still, because I think if they look back at their game, their mistakes were relatively easy to fix. I don't think they should give him Zillion again for one, and for the second part, Soaz, he lost lane early, then he got camped. I mean, it was all pretty avoidable and just snowballed out of their control. Plus, I know Fnatic, once they get beaten, they have this fire and this passion to just show up again. They did it first day as well. They got horribly underperformed. People were calling them out. Fnatic's not going to do well. And once you rule them out, they do well again.
Samsung Blue. Yeah. Right, Prolly.
I'm going to go with Fnatic with this one. I definitely think Cool is kind of strangled right now with his champion pool. He's played 2 assassins and not done well, and the one game he did win was with Zillion. So if Fnatic bans out that Zillion or is ending up picking it, I think Peke is going to, be able to take advantage in that mid lane.
Well, a lot of faith in Fnatic thus far. Crumbs, let's see if this continues.
It does not.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm going to go with OMG. And I think that the matchup is going to be a little bit reminiscent of yesterday's, in which OMG took an early Aurelia, and I want to see Aurelia be contested by both these teams, because what we see now is with that E-Max build, you get that 2-second stun at level 9, which can turn any fight around really heavily. So I really want to see going or an OMG take an early Aurelia, build a team comp around that, and then snowball from top lane.
Final thought from Freak?
I think Fnatic's going to take it. I think as long as they don't go really over-aggressive early game for kind of no reason, they should be just fine. It's just a matter of Fnatic showing up, getting past the early game mistakes, and being this Fnatic that's going on their now 13th, hopefully top 4 in a row.
So Philosopher Crumbs is the only odd one out on this desk. He's been right before, folks. Let's take a look at the fan vote over on lolesports.com and see how you guys are voting. 74% of you say that Fnatic will walk away with the win, so mirroring the sentiment from the analyst desk. We'll be heading over to the caster desk for the first game, but first, the European LCS teams tell us about the adjustments that they find themselves being forced to make in Singapore.